number that we have, it is indeed very disturbing for Nigeria to be, the country with the highest, number of out-of-school children after India. What does that tell you as a citizen, and what does that even portend for the nation, right? I am more of a piece of summary. I have my guest in the studios who I would introduce in a minute, but let's quickly give you a background to, the conversation this morning, which would be that former President Olusegun Obasanjo has warned that Nigeria's 20 million out-of-school children could become a fertile ground for the recruitment of future Boko Haram fighters in the next 10 to 15 years. Obasanjo stated this in Bauchi at the commissioning of some selected projects executed by the Abdulkadir Bala Mohammed administration. Now, this is coming on the heels of UNESCO's estimate that Nigeria has about 20 million children of school age who are out of school. Now, while the integrity of these figures have consistently been debated, the global body said only India has more children out of school than Nigeria. Reacting, Obasanjo opposited that not equipping the children to develop their innate ability and capacity leaves them for Boko Haram and bandits to exploit. Now, whilst this troubling statistics has heightened concerns about the future of the country's youth and leaders, prompting a call for urgent action, the Nigerian Senate has consequently called for a national summit to address the alarming increase in the number of out-of-school children across the country. Well, a scientist, a researcher, and a passionate trainer or teacher, if you like, Olakweju Osemebo is my guest this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Well, was it on Monday when we, spoke on the phone, and then I told you that the topic of discussion would be the menace of, out-of-school children in Nigeria. But in your words, using menace is a bit too extreme. However, one would say that it is not really, taking a look at the number of out-of-school children we have in Nigeria. So just because we want to bring in different perspectives, right, to this conversation, because it is one that's been ongoing for a while now, would rather target out-of-school children, a recipe for underdevelopment in Nigeria indeed.
Yes.
Because the children or the youth, they say, are the leaders of tomorrow. So if we have a situation whereby the leaders of tomorrow are not educated, they are on the street, and now very vulnerable to insurgents, groups, bandits, and what have you, then you begin to wonder the impact they would have on national development in the future when they become leaders, either by hook or by crook. That's just by the way. But let's start the conversation this way. Would you rather address you as Osemebo or Olakweju?
Maybe Dr. Olakweju.
All right, Dr. Olakweju. Thank you very much. Right. Over time, when we see data like this or reports, right, talking about the number of out-of-school children in Nigeria, it has always, sparked this mixed reactions, of course, from the relevant stakeholders. I mean, the education ministry, the presidency, of course, because somehow it could be perceived as a plot or a witch hunt in such a way that it will not look like the government is not doing its bid in ensuring that our children are in school, and that of course will not mean well for the government of the day. But would it be intelligent to even question the integrity of this data as we speak? Let's start a conversation from there.
Yes, good morning everyone. It's a pleasure to be here doing what I love to do. Love to talk about what will lead to development. So that is why I train by passion. There is nothing to contend over concerning the figure. Whether you take the higher level or the lower level, we have too many out of school children.
That's right.
And that is a recipe for disaster. No nation can develop without the children being properly educated, at least given the initial thing that will help them think for themselves before they think for the nation.
But over time, policies, measures have been introduced, to ensure or to make sure that this trend is curtailed or even eradicated completely. But do you believe this is something we can actually, tackle decisively in a matter of time as a nation?
Yes, I believe, because education is multidimensional.
Right.
While the pedagogy takes place in school, education takes place in the home. It takes place in the community. It is important that we get our children in school to be able to do pedagogy. That's education that helps you reason, that helps you take decision, and that helps you influence others. It is of utmost importance. Without it, we are already threading a very, very slippery and dangerous path.
All right. So before we discuss, the way forward, help us get sense. I mean, as a passionate trainer that you are a researcher as well, and also a scientist. From your own perspective, what exactly can you attribute this trend to? Is it that education is now too expensive, and that's the reason why we have the children roaming the street, probably because their parents cannot afford? But we're talking about basic education here, not even, tertiary education. Basic education is somehow somewhat free. The facts are not really too straight. At some point in time, we're made to understand that it is free. However, we also get to hear that some of these parents, they get to pay some stipend, at the end of the day just to get the awards in school. And you also take a look at the angle of the government. School feeding program is one measure that have been, introduced over time just to get these kids, back to school. But it seems like it's just short term, a measure. What do you think, or what do you make of all of this?
Yes, what I make of all of this is that we are not conscientious enough in getting our children off the streets. Nigeria needs to come forward in a very concise way. That's why I give it to the House for saying that they should come, let's discuss.
Right.
The situation is very bad. I believe that government needs to be in the forefront of getting our children from the road to the classroom and getting them to have a framework for learning, to become someone that can think for himself before being called to think for the nation. All over the world, we have 244 million children out of school. Even if we carry 10% of it, if we carry 10 point something million, is too high. So if we carry already 10% of the out of school all over the world, it is too high. And even if it were not high, it still does not help our nation. We want to develop. We want to be part of the world system. We don't want to be consuming what they bring. They make things in the West, we consume them. We don't want to do that. We want our own children to think and be able to make these things, create, invent, innovate. You cannot do any of this without some form of education. Education will assist Nigeria to develop, and it will assist us to take our place among the committee of nations. Other than that, we're just going to be watching while others are doing great things.
But let me ask you now, whose fault is it really that we have these children on the street?
The problem of having children on the street is not a linear problem where you give it to one person and says, this is the person who's responsible. We have the state, which is federal, state, and local government, even the community being involved. We also have the parents being involved. When I was in Lagos, there was something I did. I lived in Surulere. Anytime I saw children, whether in uniform or out of uniform, wandering around, I'll ask, where is your school? Why are you here now instead of in your classroom? And after a while, I'm sure they started dodging me, because the community has to show interest in education.
Right.
And we just aren't getting it. Everyone is concentrating on just your own children. If you send your children to school and the others don't send their children to school, they become a problem to the nation. So we need to come together. So the problem is in many directions, but government has to take a lead.
All right, but do you not also think, well, it's okay for you to say that the government, of course, takes the bulk of the blame as to why we have these children roaming the street, especially during school hours, but a parent, because it is expected ordinarily that before you even go into marriage, you should have some sort of expectation, right, for your generation unborn. One amongst, the main expectations would be to train your children, right? 1, 2, 3, depending on, your strength, right? To train them and to ensure that they are better, right, than you are as a parent, and also get more exposure than you did as a parent. So somehow the negligence within the family, space in terms of parenting, do you think we should shy away from that and apportion the whole of the blame, on the government?
No, I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't really apportion blame. I'll just look at what we need to do. For example, when a parent is negligent, government has the policy to make the parents fall in line. So by using policies, government can create a system. I'm talking about you wanting your children to be better than you and all of that. I think it's for a certain group of Nigerians.
Okay.
I don't think all Nigerians think
that
to
way.
that extent.
All right.
I think there are too many Nigerians who think if we have the children, God will take care of the children. So you don't particularly have to worry about that.
Okay.
We need to interrogate with the thought patterns and processes of many Nigerians so that most of our children will be in school. And as long as we don't do that, and that's why I said government should put in place policies. It's part of the policies that make government says go to school, basic education is free, and all of those.
But is it really free?
But they are not particularly evaluating all of these things.
All right.
There are many things being done, but the evaluation of these things aren't being done. School feeding was introduced. I was going to come to it later, but just for emphasis, school feeding was introduced. There are groups of people trying to find out, is it going well or not? I have not read enough of those reviews to make up my mind about it. So when a system puts in place a policy, we must evaluate and make open what's happening so that we can correct ourselves and move the system forward.
Right.
So that's where government is lacking, actually.
Yeah, I asked you a question earlier whether basic education is free.
Well, that again depends on who you are talking with.
Okay.
The people in policy will say, yes, it is free.
Right.
The people who are taking their children to school will say, no, it ain't free. So now it depends on what we are talking about. And again, it's part of the policy that is not too clear. If it were free, and I know it's free, when I take my child to school and you ask me to pay anything, I should be able to report that I'm being asked to pay and this is free. But because we are never quite sure what part of it is free, what part is not free, again, that is policy. And it is making sure that policies are monitored. And when they are monitored, we evaluate and decide what we need to change.
Absolutely. At some point in time, a former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, he came up with a policy in such a way that any child, found on the street or seen on the street during, school hours, hawking or roaming the street, that child will be taken into custody. You would have to mention your parents, their names, their location and whatever. Then they would be punished, right, for not taking these children to school. That somehow was a step in the right direction for a number of educationists, and observers. But again, some parents will tell you that education has become too expensive. Now, if we might not want to dwell too much on that, because of the economic, hardship and of course the reality on ground. But let's talk about socio-cultural norms, where somehow a particular region that comes to mind when you talk about out-of-school children, no pun intended, would be the northern part of the country for obvious reasons. First of all, you take a look at insecurity and how it has displaced, a number of people. So children cannot really go to school. I mean, who wants to go to school when the place is not even safe, right? So let's talk about socio-cultural norms aside insecurity that has displaced, a number of people. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, my thoughts on these are that the government is still not doing enough, the parents are not doing enough, and the community is not doing enough. For example, if everybody believes that children must go to school, we will get them to school. But if in some areas people believe that no, you don't have to go to school, somewhere along the line, so and so did not go to school and is okay, he got money. Where everything starts and ends with money, it is a problem. So we need to tinker with our mindset. There's a mindset thing that has to change. And how do you build mindset? It's through education. You cannot build mindset by leaving a child to roam wild. It will not build. It will only build two things. It will become streetwise, very tough, and very disobedient. He will not take instructions, and he will not be someone you can rely on. In order to get children who will develop and be reliable and be able to think for themselves before they think for the nation, they need to get into school. And through pedagogy, take them through a training process that helps them think, formulate a mindset, relate with other people outside of themselves, and respect other people. It is impossible to do it otherwise. Nobody can be born and learn to do everything well. While learning is a lifelong thing, you keep learning, you keep training. So it is important that we find a way to get our parents, our communities, and our governments to talk about education and make sure that we get all the children, at least most of them, into the classroom and make adequate arrangements for them. Some of these children sit on the floor to learn.
Right.
Some roofs have flown away, and you're just wondering whatever happened. And it doesn't particularly seem to embarrass anyone. We seem to have lost the capacity to be embarrassed when things are not going right. Again, that is because most of us are not educated. So we have, it's a vicious cycle. It keeps going and it keeps getting worse. And that one is more frightening than the initial problem. This idea that there's now a conundrum, something that is going round and round and is getting worse and worse. And we need to stop it now.
Right.
Now.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. Talking about the lack of access to quality education, you talk about the poor learning environment. It also contributes, to this issue that we are discussing.
Yes.
But not having or shortage of qualified teachers, is that enough to deter children, from going to school?
If you don't want to do something, anything at all, we deter you.
Absolutely.
So it's like looking for a reason not to do something. You will be grappling at straws, anything at all. So they are all part of the complex situation Nigeria finds itself in. And it's government that can take care of the educational system. It is government, the community, the parents that will take care of getting the children back to school. But government must take the lead now and do a census and whether we have adequate schools and condition for learning. And then, of course, get the children back to school. So it shouldn't become which one is first. If first of all gets everything ready and then the children will come. No, we've got to be doing all of them together. Every parent, get your children in school. Whatever the situation is, we'll keep improving and learning. Learning is lifelong. So let us start somewhere. Wherever we are, let's start from there and keep getting better and better at it.
Right.
So no one is exempt from getting our children back to school.
You know, there is this notion, it's really very disturbing, the notion one would say that education is a scam, right? And somehow, when you look at the reality we are, faced with in the country, where people go to school, they acquire, different degrees, and at the end of the day, no jobs. They are jobless, and also back to roaming, the street.
Yes, that's another problem. That is a curriculum issue. The curriculum we're using is not producing the children, the manpower that we need.
How do you mean?
A curriculum sets out to achieve a particular end.
Right.
The curriculum we're using now sets out to get trained people with certificates that are looking for jobs.
Okay.
The curriculum we need is the one that builds the individual to the level of mindset, and he says, okay, I want a job, but until that job comes, these are the set of skills, and I'm managing them. There are so many skills you can learn and be working while you are searching for a job. And you know what? In the process of waiting, if you really do those skills well, you may decide that that's where you want to be. So it is important that not only do our children go to school to get certificate, they get skills that are marketable, skills that they can use while they are seeking the whether white collar, blue collar, or whatever collar,
or black collar job,
whatever they're searching
right.
for. So it's important that we change the curriculum. It is important that our children are able to fend for themselves through the use of their skills. Have you seen how many young ladies are doing makeups?
Mm-hmm.
And many of them didn't particularly go to special schools. They learned from some people and then began to practice, and they began to improve. Many of them are tying gele, head tie, and they're doing fairly well. So what we are saying in essence is every child should go to school. Get the schooling that you require in order to go and learn a skill. And please don't listen to anyone who says education is a scam. It is not a scam. It is a curriculum that needs to be tailor-made to help Nigeria.
All right. In the aspect of funding for education, do you think the government of the day has actually done enough in that regard?
The government of the day has not done enough because UNICEF or UNESCO, all the UN agencies have benchmarks they do for different sectors. Government is not meeting those benchmarks. Yeah,
right.
They're not meeting them. But that's not the reason why I think they're not doing enough. They're not doing enough because if you start below expectation and you are building and it's improving and you're getting something
results,
yes, you will know that somewhere along the line you'll make it. But when instead of getting better, things are getting worse, that's where the problem lies. And we are not telling ourselves the truth.
All right. Well, if you are just joining us, this is Eagles Outlook live on Eagles FM 102.3 Abuja. And on the program this morning, we are looking at the 20 million, out-of-school children in Nigeria and what it portends for the future of our dear nation. And of course, when you talk about the leaders of tomorrow. Of course, they say the youth or the children are the leaders of tomorrow. I think at some point, was it last year or a year before last year, I saw this photograph that actually circulated so much, across social media platforms. A picture that one would say, speaks over 1 million words. You see, you see a child, right, in a library, and an armed man. Okay, so it's more like when you drop the book, you pick up the gun. That is the implication. So when I say it speaks over 1 million words, I think it's very, very clear, right, what that picture actually wanted to portray at that point in time. So the implication of you keeping your child at home or not sending your child to school would be that they will end up being very vulnerable to different, groups, be it insurgent groups. I mean, we have a number of, groups already terrorizing not just Nigeria. You take a look at the vices we have in our society today. You see a little child who is, that also brings to mind the concept of Almajiri. I'm sure it's something you've heard of.
Yes.
Do you think,
very well
do you think the essence of Almajiri or the target has already been missed?
I'm an optimist, incurable one at that. If you miss in project management, if you miss a target, you adjust things so that the target will now be achieved sometimes later. So you never quite quit because you missed the first target. You do something. So we have the opportunity now to do something, and that's why I'm so pleased with the House for saying there's an emergency in the education
But don't you think it will end up, the way it has always been, coming up with another school feeding, program? It's always been the strategy or measure, but over time we've seen that the results are not really too substantial.
That is because we have a behemoth in the House. We have an elephant in the room that we have to address. That elephant is corruption. We need to address it. As long as we don't address corruption, it doesn't matter what policies you put in place, a group of people will corner it and make whatever they want out of it. They are not interested in what you are interested in. They are interested in taking the money and not doing the work, or doing something that is so substandard that it doesn't make any sense. So it comes back to what we do in monitoring and evaluation.
Right.
We monitor. If we give you something to do, we monitor that you are doing it, where we say you should do it, when we say you should do it, how we say you should do it. Nobody is doing that. So if we monitor and then over time we begin to evaluate, did we do well? Is it getting any better? Then we move forward.
Right.
But as long as we don't monitor, we don't evaluate, we just talk. If Nigerians want to tell you what they've spent, say on a road, they will just tell you how much they used in building the road.
Right.
They won't give you any metric concerning the road, and they will not evaluate whether the matter really solved any problem. That road, when it was to be built, it had a particular thing they wanted to achieve. The economy and access and everything. Nobody goes there. So essentially Nigeria's immediate problem is that of failure of monitoring and evaluation.
All right. I'll let you hold your thought right there. And for those listening out there and you want to be part of the conversation, you can now call us on 090-8766-8888 or 090-7353-0044. You can send a voice note or a message to the WhatsApp portal on 090-9705-4450. Yes, these are the numbers, to which you can link up with us this morning as we discuss the out-of-school children, a menace or a challenge or a crisis, however way you want to see it or call it, but it is indeed a disturbing trend. And what do you think must be done, right, to tackle this decisively? Apparently, the Nigerian Senate, they've called for a national summit to address the alarming increase in the number of out-of-school children across the country. But do you think this summit would have any bite on the situation on ground? These are some of the questions that we're trying to get answers to this morning, and we'll just quickly proceed on this commercial break. And when we return, the studio lines will be opened, of course, for you to call in, of course, to share your thoughts. This is Eagles Outlook. Do join us again.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
My people, the thing where they happen for my area,
Do you think I will now find out that you have contract to bring fresh girls?
I brought you from the gutters. Who gave you all the connects? MDG who? Without me, you would have been nobody. But I
join Media Coalition and Awareness to Halt Human Trafficking, MICAT, on I Wish I Knew radio drama every Saturday at 10 a.m. Let us join hands and kick human trafficking out of our communities. I Wish I Knew radio drama, brought to you by MICAT in partnership with the National Agency for Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, and funded by the Embassy of Denmark in Nigeria.
Have you heard of the latest car maintenance, overhaul and repair service center in Abuja?
Oh, wait a minute.
BB Empire Motor Services Limited is the place. We offer a wide range of services which include full engine repair, brakes and discs, lubrication, industrial spare parts fabrication, digital diagnosing, injector and rotor servicing, wheel balancing alignment, vulcanizing, spare parts of all cars, car checker, recovery of vehicles, AC servicing and repairs of all kinds of cars. You can visit us today at a state-of-the-art multi-digital workshop located at plot 1374 Cadastral Zone C16 along Julius Berger Road, Idu Industrial District, Abuja. You can also call us on 080-6433-3100 or 090-1066-0869. BB Empire Motor Services Limited, the solution for your car needs and services.
Get the desired clients for your business and service and get your phones buzzing. From the 1st of September to the 31st of December, you can advertise and reach a large audience with the Eagles FM Ember Months package. Advertise on any of our platforms and get a whopping 30% discount. That's right, 30% discount. For more information, please call 080-5919-8658. 080-5919-8658 or 081-5791-7278. 081-5791-7278. The Eagles FM 102.3 FM Ember Package is a sure way to getting a wider clientele for your business and service.
Sorry for the inconvenience. I suppose it was inevitable. Eagles 102.3.
Right, and we are back. Thank you so much for staying with us. And if you are just joining us, this is Eagles Outlook live on Eagles FM 102.3 Abuja, where we are discussing the menace or challenge, right, of out-of-school children in Nigeria. Well, as we speak, UNESCO already put the figure at 20 million out-of-school children, and a number of concerns, or I mean, of course, having coming from different quarters. First of all, the former president has, expressed, concerns with regards to this development, stressing that this would further equip the children, to be new recruits for Boko Haram and bandits, if you like. And also, in reaction to this data, the Nigerian Senate, They've actually called for a national summit to address the alarming increase in the number of out-of-school children across the country. One would recall, of course, that I think December last year, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he also expressed, concerns with regards to this trend, and somehow he spoke to, measures that must be implemented, right, to address this trend. And somehow, when you talk about measures, the first thing that comes to mind would be the school feeding program. At some point in time, we're made to understand that basic education is free, but is it really free? Is it really free? Because if it were free, somehow maybe parents will be encouraged, to send their children to school. But some of the reviews that, we've actually been exposed to in recent times would be the fact that somehow it is free, but there are still, stipends here and there that one must have to pay, right, to get their kids or children, right, in school. But in the whole, let's not cry over spilled milk. I think a way forward would be the best way right now, or that should be what we should be discussing at the moment. What exactly are your thoughts? A number of factors have been attributed to the reason why we have this spike in the number of out-of-school children in Nigeria. But from your own perspective, as a Nigerian, because these issues actually affect us as Nigerians, what do you think must be done? A more decisive, approach or measure would you suggest should be adopted, to addressing these challenges or these factors that actually contribute to, the out-of-school children crisis that we have in Nigeria? The numbers to call are 090-8766-8888 or 090-7353-0044. Don't forget, you can send a voice note or a message to the WhatsApp portal on 090-9705-4450. Well, I still have my guest in the studios, Dr. Olakbeju Osemobo. She is a scientist, researcher, and also a passionate teacher. So, I'll just go onto the WhatsApp portal now to take some of the messages that we have on here. This one here says, good morning, Efe. I greet your guest. I'm listening from Nasarawa State. Even if education is completely free and laws are not made to compel parents, words and loved ones to send those children to school, it won't change. Most of out of school children are either staying with a bad aunt or uncle, bad relative. Some even stay with strangers who send their own children to school but refuse to send the ones staying with them. Lastly, some children, they have no parents and stay on their own. They fend for themselves. They sleep anywhere at night falls, sometimes under the bridge. Turkey Bihundo right there. Thank you so much for that message. Indeed, some of these children are orphans. They've got no parents. They are homeless. They don't even have relatives, to look after them. Let's take this call. Hello, good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for calling. What's your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Honorable Edward Sonato.
Right.
It's an interesting program. And I want to go straight to the point. The point is, the out of school children, if you critically look at what is happening. When I know where I finished my primary school, under a tree. And when after graduating everything, I still have to student my school. After graduating, I got the job because of that. I was passionate enough to build 3 units, mark my way, 3 units of 3 classrooms in that primary school with VIP toilets. I furniture everything. Now they are going to that place. Nobody is attending that school.
Wow.
I am from primary school. When I was in the primary school, local government will come. They will give us extra book, they will give us textbook, they will give us this. Now, the governors are our steps, are the major problem. Can they encourage younger, these children by, doing what will happen before, for them to go to school? No, they're not doing it. They're not doing it. You know, I can tell you that. I'm regretting why you go to school. Because someone who has not been to school, I can use AK-47 now and get money that I would never achieve in my life. And that's just particularly from the north. You know that directly, if you put them, you are wasting your time because by the time they get older, they use AK-47 and they will abandon the school.
Okay, so what would you? Yes. What do you think is the way forward?
You see, we have to start from this level. We have to make sure that the local government authority, let the federal government sponsored, thank God there is a local government autonomy now.
Right.
Sponsor this local government so that we're talking about the beginning. You cannot leave local.
All right, Honorable Edward.
Governor. Yes.
Right. Thank you very much for calling. Right. Let's leave it here. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Honorable Edward, right there. Well, please, I'd like you to take note of, some of these contributions so you get to react to them at the end of the day. This message here says, good morning, Omoefe. Out of school children in Nigeria is as a result of failure of grassroots governance. The North is responsible for over 60% of this out of school children, but the governors, they are not doing anything about it. Let us task state governors in the region with such huge percentage to revamp primary schools to make learning conducive for the children, in line with free education. Therefore, education will be attractive to all. Abbas from Duse there. Thank you so much for that message, Abbas. Right, keep the calls coming in on 09087668888 or 09073530044. It just occurred to me now that actually one of the lines have been switched off, but we just put it on now so you can try to reach us. Right, let's hear from you. How much of a concern the out of school children, menace is to you as a citizen, as a parent, right, as a potential parent, as a caregiver, and basically as a Nigerian, because one would say that as an adult, stepping out of your house or homes in the morning and then you see children roaming the streets, some of them would even run to you, to beg for money or food or, what have you. How do you feel when these children come up to you? Is it just, fun for you to just give them money and that's just about it? Do you really get worried? Do you really get, are you really bothered about the fact that these are the leaders of tomorrow, and if nothing is done about it, it could actually, portend, I don't want to say doom, but somewhat so, right, for the country. A caller, that's the Honorable Edward, he actually gave us he gave us some insight to what he did during his primary school days, right? And for him, the governors are to blame, or to be blamed, for this crisis or challenge that we have as a nation. But let me come to you now, Dr. Olakweju. What exactly are your thoughts with regards to the governors, right, across states? Let's not also forget the fact that when you talk about out of school children, we have them also in the West, we have them also in the South, and even the East, right? So it's not just something that is typical of the North. We have them everywhere, let's put it that way. Is it really the fault of the governors now, or the fault of the local government?
Thank you, Efe. What I always like to do is to look for the way forward. And so I have a number of things I want to suggest, but before we come to that,
right,
let us say that the governors are in the midst of this whole issue. So they need to get their acts together. And as soon as governments are doing something, the local government too should do something. Because education, it just cuts across. It's just that people are not aware, or they are not willing to do what they should be doing. So we are appealing to the governors and of course the local chairman,
right,
the local government chairman, to please up their game so that all our children, and we can start by reducing it by 50%. If we have a certain number, we have the record for all states of the Federation. It's no use my calling out numbers. Let us find out the number for our state and reduce by 50%. I make it on good authority. Call me to come and help you evaluate what's happening. Because we need to do it and show it. We don't need to just mouth that we spend some millions. We need to say what we have achieved with the millions that we spent. So we need to evaluate where we are going. Let's reduce by 50%, and then later on reduce by another 50. Before you know it, we'll have residual things to take care of concerning the education of our children.
Right.
We need to do this now.
Not later.
Not later.
But what is the fate of the child who is without, a parent or parents? Nobody to look after, him or her.
Yes, the system has some form of safety net whereby the children should be taken care of. Some time ago, it's still happening in part. If a child loses the parent, it will go and live with an uncle, an aunt, a cousin, and usually the child will be looked after. But somehow, we are losing our humanity. When these children go to the aunties and uncles, they are used very poorly.
Right.
And many of them don't go to school. Or if they go, they are so badly treated that they can't learn. We need to make sure that government begins to put in place its own safety net, whereby children who are orphaned will go to school. So I think, again, and community too can come and do such thing. In those days, maybe in the last 50 years, communities were sending children, brilliant and promising children abroad in those days. It's because they saw promise,
right,
and they wanted to help the child. We can come again and make sure that the children in our communities are going to school, all of them.
But you've not really touched on the role of religious leaders, right? We know, of course, that as Nigerians we are very religious, but perhaps not too God-fearing. We know, of course, that our religious leaders, our clergymen, they have the stronghold on us, the followers. Would you say they've really done well in charging their followers, to send their children to school?
We can do more. They can do more. It is important to note that the religious leaders who are not wanting the children to go to school are benefiting from keeping them out of school.
How do you mean?
Yes, good question, right. Because I was going to answer my own question. They benefit by making sure they are raising a bunch of illiterate children who cannot think. So they become so malleable. It's easy to tell them, do this, sit there. They sit there. It's easy to tell them some things that are so senseless, and you say that's the way God wants it.
Okay.
So it's because people know they can enslave people, so they want to keep them away from being educated. Another reason, of course, is because the religious leader himself is not educated. So he's a leader. So he doesn't see why anybody needs education. He believes that God will take care of you. Again, we call God into things that human beings are supposed to do. We need to work hard so that we get our religious leaders to let our people do the right thing.
All right, so just wrap up the conversation now because of time. What would be your parting words? I mean, to the parent listening out there, to the mother, to the father, to the uncle or aunt living out there, or the relative who is probably a guardian to a child who's an orphan at the moment.
Yes, my parting word is to plead with you that let us remember we were all helped. If you are educated, you were helped. Please help someone. Don't tell yourself that it's not your own child, it's not your biological child. It's a child of the country, it's a child of the community. So help him, help her. Let our community do what they used to do in days gone by when they helped the children, even if they were not even related to them. So I want to appeal, and I want to appeal to the parents too, to send their children to school. All of them. The boys, the girls, the very brilliant and the not so brilliant. All of them should go to school and do formal learning. Formal learning has effect on the way you do everything that you do.
All right.
It was the late South African leader who said education, Mandela, that the best way to build a life is through education.
Right.
It is true.
Well, education, they say, is the bedrock of, every or any society, if you like. So please make it a point of duty today to send your children to school. Honorable Edward from our post says, without employment as it stands, how can we encourage our younger ones to go to school? Well, indeed, my guests have just, rightly pointed out the fact that there is no point making, excuses. Let's do the right thing, right? Because it is possible. But I really wish you can go on and on with this conversation, but time is not our friend, right? Okay.
Yes, I just want to plead with us. Government to invest in infrastructure.
Right.
Teacher training and support should be done. Affordable and inclusive education. All forms of education. Leverage technology. Community and parental commitment and engagement. Of course, policy and governance.
Right.
Remember I talked about
Yes.
policy, and we need to promote early childhood education by all means, so that our children can think for themselves first before they think for the nation later.
All right. A scientist, researcher, and a passionate teacher indeed, Dr. Olakbeju Osemabo. Thank you so much for spending part of your time with us today.
Thank you, Faye.
All right.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. And to all of you who stayed, or called, or to those who called, to those who missed their calls, to those who sent messages, thank you so much for keeping us company on the show this morning. Until tomorrow, I am more of a peace or Samere. A very good morning to you.